So now just a quick overview of the thought behind doing these calls and this pulse work. We, again, hope to do this every third Wednesday, and we'll sort of refine the process and make sure it feels a little more seamless, I think, going forward. But the goal is to really, like I said, just offer updates, make sure everyone has a chance to be a part of the work and some of the pilots and some of the things we're working towards moving forward in Colorado, but also hopefully giving folks a sense of sort of some of the broader work as well. So every third Wednesday, plan on it. We're going to try to keep that consistent. The three sort of goals of this pulse call is to, again, share updates, 2020 and beyond. Again, as long as there's a global pandemic, also give folks a sense of sort of how we're managing it and some of the strategies and ways others are dealing with it. So also, again, just having a community to turn to that sort of is at the cross section of innovation and education and employment. Again, a support vehicle. If this doesn't become in the really short term a very driven group, I think it also can be just a good build community and keep building sort of the broader educational capacity around some of the work we're all interested in. And then just a Q&A, an open floor. There's a ton of expertise here, and hopefully we can continue bringing in a lot of expertise. And so leveraging that expertise monthly and making sure folks have access to folks that are doing a lot of this critical work. So I'm gonna maybe open the floor a little bit. Let me look at the numbers. We're at about 30, so that's cool. I'm happy to do a little national update. I'd also love to turn it over to either Chris or I see Phil and Phil on. T3 innovation work, real quick, sort of high level on any of the Department of Ed work. There's a COVID credentialing initiative that I thought I might mention, but maybe for 3 to 5 minutes, anybody else that wants to jump in and just give some broader context on the national landscape.
I'd like to nominate Phil Long.
I second it.
Well, actually, I've had a number of interesting discussions lately as people are actually working on interoperable learner record pilots around the country in various projects. One of the things that's seemingly emerging is the developers that are actually building the verified credential exchange process are looking for more detail about exactly what goes into the payload of the VC credential validation. And it's a little bit surprising to me because what goes into that depends on what they're using for the issued credential by the institution that's making the assertion in the first place. So for example, if it's a CLR that's being used to provide the format by which an assertion of a completion of a course or a degree or a certificate is being made, then the corresponding data that's required in the VC, the verified credential itself, is going to be associated with those things that the individual wishes to disclose about that credential that was defined in that initial CLR. But there seems to be some desire on the part of the developers to actually be told that it needs to be the set of these specific metadata items. And I think that's because in this instance, there's a lot of institutions that are leveraging the National Student Clearinghouse as a proxy. And it's actually the National Student Clearinghouse that's doing the development of this on behalf of those institutions. And so I guess it shouldn't be surprising in some ways, because that's what the National Student Clearinghouse's business model is in the first place, in terms of how they operate today, in terms of issuing a transcript, for example, to a requester. But the penny hadn't dropped in my perspective in terms of their proxying the institution in that regard, as well as proxying the institution in the chain of custody of identity of the issuer themselves. So those those are a couple of interesting things that have come up in terms of the national scale conversation. A second has to do with the degree to which folks are prepared to actually send a truly digital payload in the verified credential exchange process. As several institutions, or at least their proxies in some sense, standards organizations that they work with, still want to send PDFs as the payload for exchanging information. And I had hoped we'd gotten past the PDF as a framework for these things, but that's returning as a major issue. On another note, there is work going on with respect to, and Taylor, you can jump into this, with respect to a pilot on the crosswalk of taxonomies for competencies. The model that they're currently using is sort of a hybrid decentralized, centralized model. And there may be some issues about what the pilot actually will render, but in terms of as a test of what the structure underneath it is. But the other issue that came out of that, at least from my perspective, is that the various repositories that have competency standards are only surfacing a high-level index, effectively, of the taxonomy that they're using, because they want to reserve the right and the privilege to charge people for actually having them the detail that you need to implement it. And so when they share that, they're not interested in sharing that detail at this point.
Yeah, that's the, if anyone just wants to make a note, you won't find much at this point, but it's OCFnet, the Open Competency Framework Network, OCFnet, and it's sort of coming through the T3 Innovation Network channel. So folks that are involved in the T3 Innovation work, you'll probably get some exposure to that, or if folks aren't, someone could probably drop a link for the T3 Innovation Network. But it's a great spot, and we're in support and working a lot with Phil and others through the Chamber of Commerce Foundation to basically connect some of these dots, working on a resource hub. Chris, I don't know if you want to jump in, or others discuss that at all. We could probably keep moving, but I think a high level on that innovation hub might be useful, because it'll also be a platform that we'll sort of leverage here in Colorado. So.
Sure. Yeah, I apologize. I don't have my video on. I'm actually in the other room. I wasn't expecting it, but hello all. I'm Chris Purifoy, the chairman of Learning Economy Foundation. And as he mentioned, we are working really closely with U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the T3 Innovation Network, and again, Phil Long, who is, kind of pilots manager over there, to develop an interoperable learner records resource hub. So the idea is basically, we've taken the pulse of kind of what some of the big pilots that are happening from the White House and in Broward and here in Colorado and other places. Some of the needs of those pilots, both in terms of the resources that they need and also the access to individuals and different types of human resources. And so from that, we've developed a hub that, or are developing rather, a hub that will provide, really simple, seamless access to, the data standard, information that you may need, the different information about ontologies and, skills libraries and, connecting different systems and offering, some technical specifications on all these different layers that it takes to create interoperable learner records, and some of the use cases, and for how to take, some of this new information that is becoming really robust and actually make it actionable as pilots. So that we're looking for, launching that in the spring here. So we're heading on down the road, kind of coming into summer with that. So we'll make that available to everyone at the C-Lab as soon as it's ready. And it really will come out as a web link, but also as an Android and mobile app on iOS as well, that can provide both a resource space to learn and to, prepare for implementations, but also a community space to connect with other people doing pilots, and both on the national landscape as well as the local landscape. So it should be a wonderful resource, and we'll make that available, open and free to everyone.
Awesome. So this is timing still okay. We're about 20 in. So any other sort of, we get the CDG folks, Spencer, Michael, whoever might be on to dial in on what's happening in Colorado. But anybody else who can probably take another 45 minutes on broader national landscape, if anybody else has anything to add.
I would like to ask one question of those in the group, and they can get back to me separately if they like. But one of the things that's emerging is in the decision about participating in some kind of ILR related pilot, a interoperable record exchange pilot. One of the things that's emerged is what do institutions or organizations or whatever the entity is, employers need to have or need to be prepared to do to be a participant in one of those. And so this notion of building a checklist for that kind of thing is emerging. And it would be helpful if any of you represent either an employer or a COB, a community-based organization, or a school or a university and such. If you're unsure of what participating in something like this might impose on you, I'd be interested in talking to you to understand more about that and what would be necessary or helpful to you to be able to make that decision.
Yeah, and I can already pick out 5 or 6 folks that I think would have, in fact, Gita and Chris Gorgas, I saw both in the chat here. What's the best way, because it's a small enough group, I don't think you'll get inundated. What's the best way? Do you want to just drop an email in the chat or whatever's easiest for folks to get in touch?
Yeah, I'll drop an email in the chat and you can follow up from there.
Perfect. Yeah, there's again, there's work going on nationally and globally. So hopefully part of this work in Colorado is to also just make a lot of that known and allow us to feel like we're connected into some of these broader pilots and conversations. Anything else high level national? Feel free to jump in. We got another P2 if you want to hop in and mention anything.
Yeah, well, we're working with Phil, P1, my compatriot. We've numbered each other because we've worked together for too long. We're on too many emails together. So Phil always, so it's easier to number each other. We're working, I'm from Salesforce. I'm Vice President of Innovation at Salesforce. And we're working at the White House with one of our customers, Dignity Healthcare, second largest healthcare provider in the planet, around nursing profiles and how they can really remove a ton of friction from their workflows around hiring in that space. And when you get in, when you start to gain an understanding of what happens in healthcare around hiring, I was blown away by the inefficiencies. I thought education was inefficient. I found something even more inefficient that we were exposed to. And we have a really great way to apply these really skills-based profiles for these nurses to, one, engage with them and give them a differentiator in that system to be able to see where they fit and where they can grow to, instead of leaving the system for a $10,000 signing bonus to another system and coming back a year later for another $10,000, because that's really what happens for nurses. They think they can put something in place that's going to, fix their really HR system and really put something in place where it grows people into roles that they, want to be in or need to be in. So it's a really a fun project, and working with Phil in the ILR Resource Hub, which we're really looking for the public domain specification of a wrapper in a wallet. And whenever that comes out, that's where all these pilots that are running at the White House will eventually coalesce. North Star is an ILR, that wrapper in that wallet, and how can we take what we're doing in each one of our pilots and expose it at that level to have it interoperate. So I'll stop there.
Perfect. Let's keep moving. And thanks, Phil and others. Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, to know that we've got support from many angles and folks that are learning it. All of this stuff can get ported directly into some of this work. So Spencer, Michael, anyone else from CDHE, who I know Spencer's on, feel free to jump in. I'd love to give you just the next 10 minutes or so and talk Colorado specifically in whatever capacity you'd like.
Awesome. Well, thanks. And thank you all. Great to see everybody's face here. We were participating earlier today in the e-learning consortium of Colorado's virtual conference, which, like many conferences, opened up free registration and went from the usual 150-ish people to over 800 registrations. So I think you're seeing a lot of that in response to people's want and need to kind of connect with others. And so it's great to have this Pulse kickoff, I think, with Taylor and Learning Economy. And I think the cadence of this will be great, you know, a monthly check-in. And if there's more to talk about, we can certainly talk about that. We're always open to conversation. During that conversation earlier, during the e-learning consortium of Colorado's conference, you know, I was talking to some of the presenters ahead of the conference, and they were mentioning everything. All my conference presentations have changed because of the COVID-19 crisis. And that's, of course, a small metaphor for everything that we're going through as a whole society, but also in higher ed. So you can imagine in Colorado, we are pivoting to support as many online and remote learning initiatives as we can. At the Department of Higher Ed, we started an initiative to support students in acquiring technology necessary to participate. And the digital divide, I think, is even more pervasive at this time. And so it reminds me of a point that we had discussed at the C-Lab kickoff with one of the panels, that the work that we should be doing should be aiming to serve those in need, or those students that we aim to serve. So it's all really good timing, and I'm glad that momentum has kept up. That's really exciting, but it's also just reflecting and acknowledging the reality of everything else, I think, is really important to do. So thanks for making sure this meeting was put together with that in mind, Taylor and others. You can hear my pup barking in the background. I apologize for that. I think you all received the C-Lab kickoff summary report, and it's a great comprehensive overview of kind of where we were at the point where we left off, and some of the folks who had attended the event, and then also some great points of feedback, both constructive feedback and you know, affirmations of I guess positive reinforcement is what you would call it. Speaking of dogs, we got my dog over here. So if you haven't had a chance to glance at this, we'll definitely get you all the link. I think it would be really helpful to take a look at this to see what direction we're going with a number of things. The other thing I wanted to mention is we, the Department of Higher Ed, are part of the technical working group from the U.S. Department of Education's technical working group on blockchains. And we may have some others, I'm not sure, on the call who are part of that technical working group. At any rate, it's great to compare notes with other states and peers, both K-12 and higher ed. Of course, our focus is higher ed and kind of that workforce focus. But we've had one meeting with that group, and I'm sure that we are going to kick our next meeting into gear here very soon. So stay posted for updates on that. With that, I would just invite Michael to share anything further. And Michael, you didn't say that I could do this, but I'm going to share it with people anyway. Michael has a new title at our department, so congratulations to Michael. He's now Senior Director of Data Governance, in addition to data and research that he has been. Yes, so applause all around.
Well, it's very, very kind. Thank you so much, Spencer. You know, I know some of you, great to meet others of you. Yeah, Michael Vonte, Senior Director of Research and Data Governance at the Department of Higher Education here in Colorado. And so more and more of my days have been in this data sharing, data governance space. I've really enjoyed it, and really being able to work with so many of our partners. So two things that I'll mention that it might be of interest to this group. One, actually both related to COVID-19, really working with our partners throughout state agencies to be able to be a resource and collaborate with them in the best ways that we can meet the needs of Coloradans who are impacted by this in a variety of ways. So some of you might be familiar with Onward California. It is a website, kind of an aggregator of various resources in California responding to COVID-19 and the needs of Californians, created by the folks at Bitwise, and I know that they are involved with a lot of other partners on that front. And so that work is expanding to Colorado for an Onward CO, or Onward Colorado, being able to take a lot of information about workforce opportunities and applying for unemployment insurance, a variety of other supports that individuals might be eligible for, and having Onward CO be that landing page for being able to collect all of that. We at the Department of Higher Education are very connected to our Department of Labor and Employment and our Workforce Development Council here in Colorado. And so being able to lean into all of those conversations to be able to support workforce development and workforce needs during this time of crisis. Also, kind of more longer term in terms of the coming recovery that we're all hoping for and looking towards, the work that we're doing on My Colorado Journey. I know we'll talk a little bit more about that on Friday to share with you all and others about the great work we're doing there in terms of education, workforce planning, especially individuals who are displaced by what's going on right now, being able to connect them to education and training opportunities that best meet their needs, whether it's more of a short-term thing or a longer-term career change, or if they are part of the vast some college no degree pool, being able to reconnect them to some type of post-secondary education opportunity. So those are the irons that we have in the fire right now that might be of most interest to this group. Happy to take questions or talk more.
And real quick, while maybe some questions brew, I just have to give a shout out and thank Michael. I feel like you sort of slowly got pulled into this undertow, but he's been just completely gracious and with time and everything else, and super supportive. So you sort of may have felt you sort of got pulled into something that wasn't originally in your directly connected to your work. I love the fact that you've gotten this sort of bump with the title, and it to me it aligns more now than ever. So just a big thank you, and I know Chris and others share the same. You've been more than gracious with time and expertise, and have been supporting beyond what we expected. So thank you.
But it was definitely my pleasure, and it's a pleasure to work with everyone in the field. We are all about collaboration at the department, and I know Spencer has done a fantastic job of working with this group and trying to connect the dots between all these different things. So happy to help however I can.
Cool, awesome, thanks, Michael. I saw Thad on as well. I don't know if not to put you on the spot, but you can certainly jump in and give a plug or kind of talk about some of the connections to your work if you'd like, or if you're in a spot where you can.
Sure. Let's see. Over at OIT, we've been obviously sort of all hands on deck for a lot of the COVID-19 response stuff, supporting all of the agencies in terms of ensuring that their workloads are functional for both testing as well as all of the unemployment claims and those sorts of things that have been coming in. We've also been adding a lot of emergency response type functionality to the My Colorado digital ID application. In conjunction with that and blockchain related, we're in the process of trying to figure out some new ways of leveraging blockchain for messaging within the My Colorado application in order to produce more trustworthy, verifiable, and lower cost notification solutions for times of emergency, such as we are experiencing right now, obviously, but also for longer term traditional notifications that we might want to send out regarding, expiring license soon, those sorts of things. That said, it's great to connect with you all once again. It's been about a month since we've been working from home, and I know that things slowed down a little bit, but it's nice to see some momentum coming back around this. Thanks.
Yeah, and sounding like a broken record, but a big thanks to Thad and Russell and others at OIT as well. They've been super supportive, and I know time is tight, but they too have been just really gracious with keeping us updated and finding good connective threads between the governor's work and the Office of OIT with some of what we're up to. So big thanks to you guys as well. So anyone else sort of on the Colorado front that wants to chime in? We probably got another 3 or 4 minutes. Otherwise, the the remaining time, I want to give a sense of sort of what's to come with our work in C-Lab and sort of next steps, and then also just sort of, open the floor to broader conversation after that. So anything else Colorado specific or anything we missed
Yeah,
as far as?
this is Chris
Oh,
Gorald.
yeah, hey, Chris.
How you doing? How's everybody
Great.
doing? Good to be on here with this group. It seems pretty big. On the Colorado front, I work, my company Blockframe is under contract with University of Colorado under the funding that for blockchain, and we've been doing some development on a couple projects for quite a few years here now in Colorado, Colorado State, University of Colorado. My partner is Senator Kent Lambert, who passed the legislation for blockchain in the state. So we have several projects ongoing, and in our blockchain project, we're actually standing up an international governance body at University of Colorado currently, and we've started our first application to a statewide program with the Colorado Department of Education for credential tracking. So that was won under competitive bid last year. And our partner Randa Systems has that operating in 4 other states already. And we're integrating blockchain into that back end here, partnering with our research at University of Colorado. So some exciting things happening in Colorado. Also, I posted a couple of links of some other projects we have. Piazza is a medical credential tracking that we've become involved with here lately as part of the COVID, and we're implementing blockchain credential tracking for medical credentials. And it's already stood up in operation as a mobile app, so very exciting there. And a lot of this is organized through the OtherLink blockchain development community at BC-DC. So lots of things in Colorado here on this front.
Yeah, thanks for that, Chris. And you don't know it, but we actually have a meeting coming. I just had a great chat with the folks at Randa. And that was next steps, was to ensure we kind of connect and bring in some other folks, Michael, Spencer, others, and get a sense for how these connect into the work directly with C-Lab and CDHE specifically. So we'll be talking again soon, because they gave me a good download on that work, and it's exciting. And they're more than supportive to kind of fold in a lot of what we're up to. So we'll talk again.
Actually,
cool.
I think Marty Reed is on if he wants to say something about Randa.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. If
Yeah, hey guys, good to see everybody here. So yeah, we have been working on specifically around teacher credentialing for the past, I'd say about 2 years, and we've stood up the teacher wallet integrated with our licensing and credentialing systems that are statewide in 4 states extending into Colorado. And we just recently, like Chris was mentioning, partnered with Blockframe to utilize their chain. So we're excited about the work overall. I think the teacher space is probably one of the most well-defined from a licensing and credentialing standpoint. So our goal is really to solve the reciprocity problem, but then also making those teachers portable through those virtual networks. So really excited to see all the folks here that are engaged and involved in this work, and I'm happy to share any more about those efforts that we've already undertaken around that portability. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Marty. I didn't know that you were on, and I'll apologize. This has been a hectic kickoff here. So
no, not at all.
Thanks for mentioning it, Chris. And yeah, thanks. So yeah, it's exciting, and look forward to connecting more and learning more. I think part of the struggle and why I hope this call can be useful. I mean, I think there's not a day where something doesn't cross our radar. I think everybody can relate to this. Where we realize we really should be aware of something because it's been evolving sort of either in the background or, in some way tangential to sort of some of the work that we think we're directly focused. And it's like, well, there's just a lot happening, and it's, it's good, but it takes a lot of work to just connect the dots and thread these things. So that's also, again, part of the hope with this Pulse and with the C-Lab broadly. So cool. Let me run through. I'll do this quick since we're down to about 20 minutes, but wanted to sort of what the next steps are and what we have sort of collectively agreed we can sort of tackle, given the physical distance that's going to be still between us all for probably some time. We hope that doesn't, and I don't think it should really sort of slow down a lot of what we thought was possible and some of what we've mapped out. So the next probably week or so will be a bit of a digestion and bringing together pieces from this call. But then directly following that, we're going to get out a stakeholder action guide. And so the thought there basically is to give a sort of singular roadmap for everybody to sort of align to at least and have a reference for what we hope to accomplish in basically 2020 into the 2021 school year, into the fall. So top of that list in our minds is to really prove out some models and some pilots around digital wallets and portable degrees. I think there's a lot of existing state infrastructure to allow this to happen. This can be separate from the blockchain conversation altogether in a lot of ways. And obviously the work that Marty and others are doing fit well with this. They've already done a ton of work on sort of the teacher licensure side, but we want to sort of backfill, back into higher ed and then potentially back into K-12 as well. So the sort of next steps after we get this action guide out will be more or less an open call, and we already have identified a number of groups, either networks within universities or the community college system broadly is pretty interested. We have folks on the workplace side, employers like Salesforce and others that are sort of ready for this sort of work, and so that's the next step. Basically, through the end of this year, building out 3 or 4 pilots, whatever seems reasonable, after we sort of scope the landscape, that can start to make this stuff real and show that a sort of individual learner-owned portfolio, we hope longer term of granular skills and that sort of thing, but up front, likely starting with just degrees, proving that that's a reality we can actually make happen in Colorado. So that's sort of the core goal towards the end of this year. Part of that work will again be this call and ensuring that this is a community space where we can keep engaging. We will also hold there's also another call we can mention on Friday coming up that I think a lot of you have seen. That's another way to get plugged in. We'll also have 2 separate sort of work stream calls that'll be bi-monthly, hopefully. That's the intention. One developer work stream call, so folks like probably Chris and others that are really developing some of the applications and the technology to move some of this forward, and then a stakeholder work stream call. So that's folks that really want to take a lead on sort of the core identified focuses, work groups around, say, credentialing or identity and trust. So 2 sort of evolving calls that'll be a little more focused, and then this one being monthly, obviously, that'll be overarching, community-wide, and follow the same sort of format that it did today. And then lastly, also working towards and Spencer, Michael, we'll have to reconvene what's feasible, but also doing some sort of virtual sort of facilitator summit, bringing together leaders in a more sort of focused virtual space to sort of supercharge what's possible here. So that's sort of the rough roadmap, but again, that'll all be outlined in the facilitator action guide that we'll get out here, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. Chris or others, anything else that you want to chat about or that I maybe missed as far as just
Sure.
roadmap stuff for the remainder of the year?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. Someone in the chat asked about what a pilot would look like. And I would say, I'll give you a broad stroke here, but to Taylor's point, we are going to be rolling out the action plan really soon. And that action plan will really give a scope as well as a clear understanding of each piece on this and how we roll this out through the end of the year and into next year. So a lot of that information is forthcoming. But where really, to his point on where the work really begins here in Colorado, is in, again, the digital wallet space. And the ability to transfer, again, the idea with a degree being kind of the really easy low-hanging fruit, to store, a degree on a learner's device, and their ability to transfer that between an employer and other institutions. And so that's kind of a step one. From there, you can begin to develop skills libraries and store deeper assertions and achievements that are also transferable, but we'll see how far we get down the road this year.
And maybe, I was going to say, maybe mention that just the equity lens that has sort of been filtering over everything.
Happy to talk about that.
We're quickly realizing that, Colorado may not struggle with some of the things other communities are, but there certainly are issues still. So yeah, maybe thoughts on what we can do here to also go down that road. Yeah.
Yeah, so I will say a bit of evolving information, as he said. We have been working really closely with ETS, Education Testing Services, and the HBCUs, the historical Black colleges and universities, as well as the minority serving institutions. And what we're learning is that the learners who have gone home, almost 20% of them don't even have access to data plans, which is pretty remarkable. And it lets us, and it lets you see really clearly this equity lens that it's easy to kind of ignore, because everyone has a seat at the table at the school. At least they can access education there. But now all of a sudden this is a critical need, because there are learners who literally don't have a seat at the table anymore. And so we have kind of expanded the work a bit from, so we focus a lot on digital wallets and skills libraries and pathways. But what we're learning is there's also really a need for equity networks, which is really just in a very simple sense, like we need to get everyone connected to the internet. It's a pretty simple idea, but it's a pretty important one. And so we have been developing kind of some surveys to start to understand where the needs are, and both looking at how to launch some of those with radio, 4G technology, as well as tapping into existing networks and starting to make those available. So that work is that rapid response work is coming quickly down the pipeline as we start to try to solve some of these challenges in the near term, not just later on. So that's an important thing. I'll also mention one more off-topic thing. I saw someone mention some events in the chat. I know, speaking with Spencer from Colorado Department of Higher Ed recently, he made a really good point, which is, the work we're doing is really dedicated to, it really has the ethos of, let's help all ships rise on the same tide, and in many ways, there's a lot of distributed education innovation happening and employment and education in Colorado. And there are obviously many events happening across Colorado, both, small and large events. We would love to encourage anyone that is hosting something or, doing these types of events to let us know about those for a couple of reasons. One, so that we can help you, get those messages out, but also so that we can offer, some of our updates for what's happening into that. So we can tie that into the broader, Colorado landscape of kind of unified information and effort. So please let us know when you have events and when things are happening that we can both contribute to or help you get the word out for.
Cool, that's great. Yeah, and Spencer was, of course, a bit selfless. He actually was the keynote opening this morning for that conference. So yeah, that's good call. There again, this comes back to just a lot happening, and given that we're now in this new normal, which for some of us isn't all that new. A lot of this is sort of our existing normal, but for most it's not. And so I think now more than ever, yeah, just continuing to keep communication lines open, and we're obviously happy to amplify anything else that's going on that's related. I do want to mention one thing, and Chris froze up on me, so let me know am I still coming through okay?
Yeah, you sound fine to me.
Cool. One question came up, and Al, I love seeing you in here. Feel free to jump in, but you don't have to. Just sort of what does it look like asynchronously to continue some of this? And we will, along with this action guide, also be making available a platform, WeLibrary, that is also being leveraged for that T3 innovation work that we mentioned earlier. So we'll have a devoted space that is separated from the madness of Facebook and Twitter, and we can really curate and dial in this application to really meet our needs. So I should have mentioned, but that's a big piece of what we have coming as well, is an asynchronous tool to move some of this forward. Chris, Duncan, we've got 10, which I wanted to give about 10 for the open floor, but if you guys want to give a quick minute, or Duncan, if you want to do a quick demo, anything that makes sense that might be useful.
Yeah, I'll just give a quick blurb about WeLibrary, and then I'll send out an email as well. And if you'd like to follow up, I can follow up a little bit more with you on an individual level. But yeah, WeLibrary is it's a social library platform meant to supercharge work grouping and content where the most useful stuff rises to the top. We've used this for live events, asynchronous events, for organizing content, and right now we're using it to develop the T3 Innovation Network ILR Resource Hub. In a really intuitive and I think community-driven way. So yeah, it's a really powerful platform. And yeah, if you'd like to know more about it, I'll send a follow-up email after this call. So thanks.
Cool. Perfect. So that's kind of all I've got. So floor's open for the most part. Mics are open and hot. So anybody that wants to jump in, feel free.
I'll just jump in there, Taylor, quickly. I just want to say, first of all, this is really exciting. I'm amazed that you guys got all of these people together and with common interests, and we're moving forward with a pretty awesome initiative that could really spring off into multiple areas. So thank you to you guys for organizing this. I'm at CU Boulder now in technology, cybersecurity, and policy. Chris, I'd love to Gaurag, I'd love to connect with you possibly. I know you're doing some of that stuff. We're doing a blockchain cert too. So I'd love to connect with you offline, but there are a number of people that I can't wait to follow up with common interests in here. So thank you guys for putting this together.
Yeah, and big heart goes out to Al just as a thought partner and partner in crimes in many ways on a lot of fun projects. So I know we'll find a time to grab a drink as soon as we can. Anything else? And this can be literally as wide open as you'd like. It can move beyond Colorado. We can.
Sure. I posted my email in the chat if anybody would like to reach out to me directly. We also have some other projects going on at where we are working really closely now with the Missile Defense Agency and some other government in organizing a supply chain for secure supply chain using blockchain. Right now it's out for some phase 2 funding. We've already gone through a first phase on that, as well as we do a project for smart metering, basically, where we use blockchain to program the security underlying components, the cryptographic keys, if anybody knows what that means, into IoT devices. And that one is also rolling to phase 2. So we have quite a few blockchain things in the works and been going on now for almost 4 years. Our International Alliance for Trust Chains is the the governing body we're setting up through University of Colorado. We are now going to moving to a 501c3 and looking for people to contribute in different working groups for that. So if it's something you're interested in doing, contact me directly and I'll hook you into some of the efforts there. As well, the blockchain development community, where I provided a link for, has many things going on where we have about 60 people who have been turning code on this blockchain for the last 2 years. And now it's up and running. So it's a good time for Colorado.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Yeah, Geeta, hey, how are you?
Good, how are you? Long time no see.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is the place, but I wanted to share the work I've been doing with the high schools in Colorado and possibly in universities as well, is the college and career readiness, the new 2021 graduation requirements. And so it's called LivedX, lived experiences, and giving micro credentials to students based on a framework that I've developed. and those could be used toward the graduation requirement, the capstone project, or the college career readiness. I've already done the pilot with the school in Cherry Creek, and I was getting the pilot off the ground with Jeffco and a couple of other schools. And you and I talked about it, but and so at that time, blockchain was not part of it, but as I listened to everybody, I think blockchain would be part of it. And I just wanted to kind of plug into this community. I think it's wonderful that you put these people together. And I just wanted to kind of reach out to say, who can I reach out to pick their brains? Because I think we have a lot of intellectual capital in this Zoom conference. So I just wanted to throw it out there.
Yeah, and our hope is that along with this, the platform WeLibrary that Duncan mentioned will be another great space to actually capture and surface some of that, so that it doesn't get lost after the fact. So stay tuned in the next few weeks. I think that'll be a great spot to start connecting some of these dots, just since we all have limited time to make it happen, obviously on the fly with these. We're down to the last 4 or 5, and I want to thank you, Kita, for that too. Yeah, and I love, we had a great discussion early on, and Kita is a pioneer from within the institution for sure. I saw Simone on. I would love to give you a few minutes just because I know you're plugged into some amazing things. I don't know if you can jump in for 2 or 3 minutes to give a sense of kind of your perspective on where we're at here. I see Noah and others, and anyone, Dan Shields, obviously, if you speaking of partner in crime, that him and I just got done with a great blockchain certificate course at DU, and he did a pretty epic job, I thought, given circumstances. So Simone, if you're open and want to chat, otherwise, anybody else for the last 2 or 3 minutes, feel free.
Sure. Well, just a quick shout out to everyone in Colorado. My name is Simone. I'm calling in from a small town in Italy, outside of Bologna. That's my bat cave. But I do work in the digital credential space with a company called Digitary. We're mostly supporting student mobility at a higher education level between a global level, but we have headquarters in Dublin, in Ireland, and in Melbourne, Australia. We are deeply involved with the work around interoperability of student data. So CLR, ILR, or the other pre-existing standards, and the conversation is very much one we're plugged into. And that's how I came across C-Lab and the great work that you guys are doing there. I appreciate very much the visionary leadership that drives the project, but also kind of the width of the stakeholders that are involved. Thanks for the work you're doing. It's going to be a reference for many other projects, not just in the US, but I believe internationally. Good luck.
Yeah, and Simone, another one top of list. When the pandemic passes, we've got to make sure we find time in person. Cool. Again, last thoughts, comments. I see another few folks. Tyler, I'd love to, if you want to chat on Moonlight, or Cecil's in here from Adigia, who supported the kickoff. So anybody else that wants to take the floor, feel free.
Sure. So we have 1 minute left. I can give a.
Yeah, and we'll stick around because I know this was a hectic launch here to switch rooms, but we'll certainly stick around for another 5 or 10 for those that can, but for those that have to drop, feel free.
Yeah, so I work on a project called Moonlight. It's really designed to be a decentralized networking platform, or professional networking platform that's built on top of a decentralized SSI layer. We right now are in a closed beta, but we should have kind of a general public release in the relatively near future. We're actually, over the next 4 weeks or so, we'll probably be looking for some beta testers to provide feedback more specifically on our profiles and our SSI implementation. So if anybody is interested in that, I'd really appreciate some input, as critical as possible, please. I'm a fan. maybe a glutton for punishment a little bit, but that'd be really helpful from this team especially. Thanks for the time, Taylor.
Yeah. And Tyler, we've said it as well, but we're all reveling for the day when we can actually, hang out again. So you're on the list too. We'll make it happen. That goes for this crew too. The more critical, the better. And we've gotten some of that since the kickoff. So thank you. But none of this works if we sort of stay in our singular lane that we know well and aren't receptive to the broader perspectives and other learners that are affected by this work. So same goes. The hope is that this group and this call can be as honest and critical as possible to ensure that we're not going down a road we shouldn't. So this is also these are guardrails for each other to be able to chat about this stuff. So we are at the hour, and I know folks probably got to hop. So thank you, everybody. And again, we'll stick around and thanks Chris and Aaron. It's great to see all these names and faces. It's for someone who doesn't get emotional, like I really am excited about getting past this and being able to see some of you in person. So we'll stick around or at least I will, for 5 or so. But if anyone has to hop, feel free. A minute, if no one chimes in, then silence will mean moving on.
Thanks everybody for coming.
Yeah, thanks, and thanks Duncan for reacting on the fly. We'll figure out what happened there, but don't sweat it. All right, I'll take silence as we're there. So thanks everybody. We'll do it again next month. So we'll make sure it's a solid link and get the communication out for it. But same bad time, same place, probably not same place, similar place next month. So be in touch in the meantime. Thanks all.